I'm Christopher Griffin, Assistant Coordinator of Recreation and Community Events for the town of Braintree, and I'm pleased to welcome you this morning as we mark the 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks of September 11th. Before we begin today's ceremony, I would like to ask the Braintree Police Department Honor Guard to post the colors, and I would ask you all to be standing.
Detail. Halt. Right. Face.
Please remain standing while we invite Bert Tremblay to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I now invite the Braintree High School Concert Choir under the direction of Mr. Matthew Sawtell to lead us in our national anthem. And I would like to ask Father Paul Clifford to come to the podium and offer the invocation.
I call the days from September 20th to the 25th, 2001, the most horrible privilege I have ever had in my life, never mind as a priest. It was in those days that I was detailed down to New York as part of the government and the IAFF, International Association of Firefighters partnership, to serve as chaplain at the site, in the morgue, and in firehouses across the city for 5 days. And the stories and the people and the moments that we experienced there, of course, will remain in our hearts as stories of certainly terror and all kinds, the worst, of human grief and pain, but also resilience and light and strength, more than I could ever expect, more than we sometimes remember that we have within us. When I recall those times, I think the thing, and this is the case with any memorial, the important thing is what we did take away as a country from that day. Never forget. And never forgetting is best done one by one with names, remembering the special gift that each person is. So wonderful to have our high school chorus friends with us today, one of whom has a birthday today. Can you imagine that? One of my most treasured places that I go whenever I go to New York is actually across the street from the World Trade Center in number 3 World Financial Center. There's a memorial there called 11 Tears, and it was erected by American Express for 11 of their employees who that day were not working at the World Financial Center, but instead went to the World Trade Center where they had other auxiliary offices and never came home. And it's a beautiful, quiet memorial in the foyer of a building that you'd never notice. I stumbled across it one year. If you're ever down in and around Ground Zero, take the time. It's very easy to find if you know it's there, and to go and to look. As we open this ceremony, I turn to the beginning of our experience with 9/11 and what would become our war on terror, and recite those names as symbolic of so many who lived and died that day, and whose memories continue to inspire us as a people. Ivan Bonomo, Gennady Boyarsky, Lucia Krifasi, Bridget Esposito, Lisa Carney Griffin, Ann Talsky Ransom, Karen Renda, Benito Valentin, Loretta Ann Vero, Sigrid Wieswe, and Paul Zoyce. The prayer that connects me so powerfully to that day is from the scriptures. Psalm 27 is a song of great confidence in the power of God, specifically in the face of enemies, but in a broader sense, above all that can pull us back from being who we are. The Lord is my light and my help. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Before whom shall I shrink? When evildoers draw near to devour my flesh, it is they, my enemies and foes, who stumble and fall. Though an army encamp against me, my heart would not fear. Though war break out against me, even then would I trust. There is one thing I ask of the Lord, for this I long, to live in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to savor the sweetness of the Lord, to behold his temple. For there he keeps me safe in his tent in the day of evil. He hides me in the shelter of his tent. On a rock he sets me safe. And my head shall be raised above my foes who surround me. And I shall offer within his tent a sacrifice of joy. I will sing and make music for the Lord. Lord, be our light and our salvation, the strength in our souls, the song in our hearts. Help us never to forget, but always remember, most of all, your merciful love in this gathering, on all we do this day, and on all that we are. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Please be seated. This morning we mark with solemnity and remembrance the passing of 20 years since a clear and warm early Tuesday morning was suddenly shattered just before 9 a.m. by an act of unspeakable evil. Yet we also remember that in those darkest moments, we also saw the very best of humanity displayed in the heroic actions of our first responders. We honor the sacrifice of the members of the New York City Fire Department, New York City Police Department, New York and New Jersey Port Authority Police Department, and the Emergency Medical Services, many members of whom perished that day, all while in the act of saving others. In doing so, we also offer our sincere thanks and gratitude to their brothers and sisters here in uniform in Braintree who carry on that legacy of service and selflessness every day. Thank you to all of our public safety personnel. Before we begin our program this morning, I just want to introduce some of our elected officials. First, Mayor Charles Kokoris. Our host for this morning, Chief James O'Brien and the members of the Braintree Fire Department, Chief Mark DuBois and the members of the Braintree Police Department, Senator Walter Timilty, Representative Mark Cusack, Robert Folks from the District Office of Congressman Stephen Lynch. We have several members of our town council here with us, including Councilors Julia Flaherty, Donna Connors, Meredith Berica, members of the school committee who are with us, and former Mayor Joe Sullivan is with us as well. And we also want to give a very special welcome to Miss Sandy Duffy, who's with us. Sandy was the chairperson of the 10th anniversary committee held 10 years ago today in front of Town Hall. And Sandy, we're very honored to have you with us representing the committee that put in so many hours of work to provide us with that ceremony that morning. Thank you very much, Sandy. We also have many other town department heads, town employees, and of course our great friends from the American Legion, the VFW, and the DAV, and all members of the veterans community are here with us today. Thank you all for your service, both to our country and to our community. Thank you all. I would ask that you all now stand as we observe a moment of silence and the ringing of the bell at the time the North Tower of the World Trade Center was struck at 8:46 a.m. Please be seated. I would now like to invite Mayor Charles C. Kokoros to come to the podium to offer some opening remarks to today's ceremony. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning, everyone. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. It's very important that we all be here today together. As we gather here today on this 20th anniversary of the terrorist attacks on our country on September 11, 2001, we continue to remember and respect all of those we have lost. Our continued observance of this day is a commitment we must make and keep making. It is our responsibility to keep our promise to never forget. When we reflect upon the events of September 11th, 2001, we remember the death and destruction that occurred in a field in Pennsylvania, at the Pentagon, and the World Trade Center. Yet, from all this death and destruction caused by such cowardly, barbaric, and evil people, American heroes emerged. The firefighters and police officers and EMTs who ran towards the towers in Pentagon to risk their lives because there were so many individuals who needed their help. Facing death, first responders ran towards the chaos, not thinking of their lives. Instead, they were focused on saving the lives of many others. They are true American heroes. The office workers in the World Trade Center and Pentagon who risked their lives to help their injured co-workers, they are true American heroes. The passengers aboard Flight 93 who knowingly sacrificed their lives to save the lives of so many, they are true American heroes. The many Americans in our great country who in the days following the attacks went to Ground Zero to assist public safety officials in their rescue and recovery efforts, including Braintree's own first responders. They are true American heroes. On this day, in the face of evil, Americans showed what it truly means to be united. Those who carried out these cowardly attacks sought to instill fear in Americans and disrupt our democracy. But what they got in return was an even more united States of America. Through this tragedy, our nation found out what America is made of, and that is true American heroes. I would like to now introduce to you one of our own true American heroes from the Braintree Fire Department, my friend and a tremendous member of our community, Fire Lieutenant Freddie Viola.
Good morning. I'd first like to start by acknowledging all of the veterans and those in our community, members of the Braintree Fire Department and Police Department, who on September 12th, after seeing what they saw the day before, made the call to go and join our armed forces and protect our country. For the last 20 years, they have been keeping us safe from more terrorist attacks. Despite what you see on TV and despite what you feel, these people are American heroes. They kept us safe for 20 years. Their efforts were not in vain. Their efforts were heroic. And I want everyone here to acknowledge those veterans who put their lives on the line for us for the last 20 years to keep our country and our town safe. Thank you. I would also be remiss if I didn't mention there was another member of the Braintree Fire Department who responded to Ground Zero on 9/11. He couldn't be with us today, and that's Lieutenant Mark McCabe. Mark was there in the role of the FEMA Task Force 1, and he was charged with finding and helping with survivors and retrieval of victims. So for Mark, I would like everyone to just give him also. So I'm not a politician. I didn't write down a speech. I tried to yesterday, tried to put my words into some sort of form, and I couldn't. So I think the easiest thing for me to do is to tell you the story. I was working that morning. I was here at this building retrieving some gear, when one of my colleagues came out and said that a plane just hit the World Trade Center tower in New York City. I did what most of you would do. I looked up and said, "There's not a cloud in the sky." And he said, "They don't think it was an accident." So, as the rest of you, I watched on TV for the next few hours. I watched our country become gripped with fear, uncertainty. I watched towers fall. And when the tower fell, I remember thinking to myself, there goes 200 guys, easy. And some of my coworkers were like, "I never thought of that." I'm like, yeah, they were in those buildings trying to save people. And that was 200 easy. It turned out to be 343, ultimately. So a bunch of my friends got on the phone. We started to call each other, talk to each other. I played hockey for the Boston Fire hockey team. And we played the FDNY team all the time. We went to tournaments together, got in some trouble together, did some stuff together that we had a lot of fun. And all I could think about was those people being under that rubble. So a gang of about 9 of us got together, got into our personal vehicles at 4 o'clock. We drove to Ground Zero. No mission except to help. We got there, and it was kind of funny. You talk about the innocence of back then. The city was shut down. There were police roadblocks everywhere. And we pulled up in a pickup truck and a minivan. I was in the pickup truck. And we said, "We're here to help." And the police waved us through. They didn't know who we were. I mean, now it would be much different, right? We wouldn't be able to just kind of walk our way down. And we did. We jumped in behind an NYPD bus. We got right down close to Ground Zero, as close as we could get. Walked up, and we were met by some firefighters and police officers, and they said, right now, they're just using heavy equipment to make ways in. So we can't use you right now, but come back at first light. So we found refuge in a firehouse, Ladder 25. They were gracious enough to let us stay there. However, family members were there, and the chaplain was there, and we knew that they had lost members, so it was uncomfortable for us. So we left and stayed in a hotel. Next morning, first light, we just got to work. We worked from the first light to the last light, digging with our hands, putting debris into 5-gallon buckets and handing it off to the next guy or girl to put out, to dump out and sift to see what they could find. Everything was pulverized. There was no chairs, there was no desks, there was nothing that would really resemble anything of an office building, and this was the 2 biggest office buildings in the world. And I remember being so frustrated that I couldn't find anything. And interrupting us all the time were calls for safety, either one or the other. Somebody would hear something, so we all had to be quiet, stop moving, stop digging, and would have to wait for the all clear. Or, worse than that, debris would fall from an upper floor, or something would shift, and we'd all have to evacuate and run off the pile. And when I say run off the pile is concrete and steel, and it wasn't easy to do. And each time, if you slipped and went the wrong way, you could have fallen 80 feet into a hole, and nobody would have found you. So that was very, very frustrating for me. Over the course of the next 3 days, we did the same thing, pretty much Groundhog Day. We got up, we went down there, we dug. I'll never forget seeing construction workers with cuts all over their hands, wrapped up in just about anything they could find, still digging and looking for survivors in that rubble. It didn't matter that we found pulverized dust and little bitty pieces of things. We wanted to find people, and we were going to stop at nothing to do that. So as soon as President Bush came down, they kind of locked it all down. You really needed some credentials to get into the site after that. We were just sort of rogues that found our way in, either by having our gear on and just kind of blending in, or telling someone that we're just here to help and we just want to help in any way we can. So again, we were looking for our colleagues, our buddies, our hockey guys, and anyone that we could find. Over the course of those 2 days, we were only able to find one civilian, and we were honored to assist in the extrication of a Port Authority police officer. So the way that they did that was very procedural, very respectful. They would call the Port Authority guys there at first to take their guy out, and then it would go down the chain, and we would carry, just pass along the remains. And I'll never forget it, because we were sitting there waiting for them to extract, and I hear, "Hey, Freddie V." And I turned around, and it was Mark McCabe, a Braintree firefighter in 22 acres of complete rubble, dust, and chaos. And he said my name. I turned around and I said, "What are you doing here?" He's like, "The question is, what are you doing here?" And I said, "Just trying to help." We embraced. I said, "Be safe." And that was the last time I saw him until he got back. But I thought that was kind of a cool moment, that through all of that, you see somebody you know, a familiar face, and hear your name being called. When I came home, I received a letter from a widow who I didn't know her. I didn't know her husband. There's 30,000 people, 30,000 firefighters in New York, and of the 300, I didn't know any of them. But I want to share a letter that she wrote me, and I've only read this once in public, so bear with me. My emotions are still very raw, even though it's been 20 years. It's just something that will never go away. I think that everybody here in some way, shape, or form can relate to that. There's a certain thing in your life that you'll never ever forget, and that cuts deep. So, but I'd like to read this for you. Dear Freddie, I wanted to thank you very much for the engine patch you gave. It was kind of you to think of us. Pete told us that you went down to New York City in your brave efforts to assist New York's bravest. Not only do I thank you for your courage and kindness, so does the FDNY. It was the darkest day in the history of the New York City Fire Department that day, and men were scattered from hospitals as far away as Delaware. Unfortunately, Tom was not there. His body was recovered on Monday, September 24th, 2001. That's Lieutenant Tom Halloran from Engine 6, the Flying Tigers, who lost his life that day. Like I said, I didn't know Tom, but I did some research about him after, and I had to say his full name. I had the great honor of meeting one of the firefighters who recovered Tom that day when I was on an unplanned visit to Ground Zero and on the way to another firefighter, Bill Johnston's, funeral. He told me it took them 8 hours to get him out. All the care, respect, honor they showed him during the whole process was amazing. I still cry when I think of that place and the great men who returned my husband to me. Firefighters are an unusual breed. The chances they take and the risks that were taken that day are very hard to bear. But they all said Tom would have done the same thing. I am so thankful to have had Tom in my life. We were married 10 years ago. We have 3 beautiful children and had just finished building our new home. Tommy is now 8, Caitlin is 6, and Liam is 2.5. Enjoy the company of those you love, and have a happy Thanksgiving. Respectfully, Colleen Holleran. The fact that a woman took time, less than 2 months after they dug her husband out, to write me a letter, some bum from Braintree that just decided to go their road with his friends, is how I look at it, was just an amazing piece of what America is. We're kind. And what did I come out, what came from me for September 11th and my going there, was I'm unapologetic for being patriotic. I respect my flag. I love my flag. I fly the flag whenever I can. We are not a country of hate. We're a country of opportunity. In fact, George Bush said it on 9/11. We are the greatest beacon of hope in the world. And no one will keep that light from shining. It's up to us to keep that light shining, though. It really is. What I did was not heroic. What I did was what every American should do in a time of crisis. Respond and try to help, instead of just watching. I appreciate everybody being here today. I appreciate those veterans who have sacrificed so much over these last 20 years. And I don't ever want them to feel that anything they did did not have purpose, because it did. It means more to me that they feel that way than the way I feel. You guys and girls. You built everything that we have. So the young kids here today, that you don't really understand the day except for history. Keep history alive. You can't bury history. You got to keep history alive so that the future will be better. And if we could all just be a little better, I think we'll all be all right. So I thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening to my bantering. I would do it all over again. I'd do it 100 times over again, although my wife would probably kill me. But I still have the marks on my arm from her grabbing me. But I actually spoke to some of the guys that I dug with this morning. They called me, said, "I love you, brother. I'll be thinking of you today." And that means the world to me too. So thank you for coming out here. Stand for your flag. Respect your country. It's the greatest one in the world. It really is. That's all I got.
Fred, I know I speak for everybody here when I say what a privilege and honor it is to know you, and thank you for sharing that with us this morning, and thank you for the work you continue to do for our community every day. So thank you. I would ask that you all please now stand as we observe a moment of silence and a second ringing of the bell for the time the South Tower of the World Trade Center was struck at 9:03 a.m. Please be seated. As we approach the conclusion of today's ceremony, I want to invite all of you after the ceremony to join us out in front of the fire station as the mayor, the veterans agent, and the fire chief will be laying wreaths of remembrance at the Firefighters Memorial just out here to the front of the fire station. I do also want to note that Norfolk County Sheriff Patrick McDermott has joined us this morning. Thank you, Sheriff, for being here with us. Before we conclude today's ceremony, we just wanted to briefly recognize that our ceremony today is the first in many years not to be under the guidance of Mr. Nelson Chin, who we lost last December. For the past 9 years, Nelson brought great dignity and solemnity to this annual remembrance, and he is missed today and every day as we carry forward the work of our town without such a giant of our community. And with that, I would like to thank several people who helped today, specifically Steve Leary and Kate Naughton from the Mayor's Office who helped organize this. We would certainly like to thank BCAM for always being here and at all of our important ceremonies to broadcast it, to make sure that those who can't be with us today can see it in their homes. And we also want to invite all of you to join us afterwards for a breakfast provided by Anthony Columbus Catering. And the most important thank you to all is to all of you for joining us here today. As Lieutenant Viola mentioned when he referenced the choir, it's every year more people who join us know only of this date through history. So it is so vitally important that we gather here every year to remember this day and remember what happened, and to pass on to future generations exactly what this day means and the exemplary service offered by our police, our fire, as we remember those who lost their lives 20 years ago today. So I would finally like to invite Father Clifford back to the podium to offer the benediction, followed by the Braintree High Concert Choir, who will lead us in God Bless America.
As we ask God's blessing upon us as we go forth, and inspiration for all we undertake today, we end as we begin with some names. Here, coincidentally, 20 years after the attacks, Johanny Rosario's body, as we gather here, is arriving at Logan Airport. And if you want something that's not 20 years old, but that happens currently, and some names to identify with to help you carry this day forward, we can remember those members of the United States Armed Forces lost so recently in the terror attack in Afghanistan. It is precisely the same hate and disregard for freedom and life that took them, and we do well to remember their sacrifice today. From the United States Army, Staff Sergeant Ryan Naus. From the United States Navy, Corpsman Max Soviak. From the United States Marine Corps, Lance Corporal Karim Nakui. Lance Corporal David Lee Espinoza. Lance Corporal Riley McCollum. Lance Corporal Jared Schmitz. Corporal Hunter Lopez. Staff Sergeant Darren Taylor Hoover, Jr. Corporal Deegan William Tyler Page. Sergeant Nicole Gee. Corporal Humberto Sanchez. Lance Corporal Dylan Mirola. And Sergeant Johanny Rosario. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In his holy name, amen.
Thank you all again for your attendance here this morning. May God bless all those who serve and who have served and continue to serve. And may God bless the memory of those who we lost on this day 20 years ago. And may God always bless our United States of America. And with that, I would like to ask the Braintree Police Department Honor Guard to conclude our ceremony by retiring the colors.
Halt. Left. Face.
Thank you all very much, and please join us out front. Please join us out front for the Lady of the Race.